Bintu Agni, number one again. White wave, wave. I love that. I love that you're just pop right up all the time. It's so cute. Thank you for doing so. Hi, Maria. How are you? I'm good, thank you. I was having a week, and then it kind of turned around this morning when I woke up. I felt better. So sometimes you just have those weeks, or you have a day, and then you think, gosh, things are going in this direction, and then something happens and it goes in a different direction. And one of the reasons it's going in a different direction is because of the guy I'm going to talk to today. Brandon Stanton created Humans of New York, and he has this incredible new book called Humans, and it's from his travels all around the world, and the stories in here move you so deeply, inspire you so deeply, and you can't help but feel like you're a part of this larger universe, and you can't help but feel like you're meeting people right where they are. And he has done that. And I'm so excited to have him on here. He book, and it's an instant bestseller. My brother Timothy said, "You've got to talk to Brandon." There's Brandon.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Am I coming through okay? This is my first ever Instagram live. Am I coming through all right?
You're perfect. Okay. Do you have a shirt on? I don't know, where are you?
I do have a shirt on.
Okay.
I should have had.
Oh, now you're not coming through. Okay. Now, can you hear me? I think Brandon's not in a place with good internet. I was like, all right, you're in a place. Maybe Brandon, you should go off and come back on. Can you do that? Brandon doesn't have there. Maybe he should go back on. Hi, Brandon. Can you hear me? I can see you now. Can you hear me? Don't move. Brandon, I think Brandon looks like he's somewhere outside of the city, really chill, but maybe a place with not such great internet. Am I right? How about now?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. I'm seeing you kind of a little bit.
I was outside to not wake up my daughter. The internet's a little bit better, is it?
That's much better. I hope you don't wake up your daughter. I'll speak for yourself. How old's your daughter?
She is 2.5.
2.5. Oh gosh. I hope you're not having the terrible twos.
Nah, she's been very sweet.
So Brandon, listen, my brother Timothy, Timothy who runs Special Olympics, and Brandon came to the World Games in Abu Dhabi. And so many of there's several pictures of the Special Olympic athletes in this book, which is so beautiful. But he said to me, "You've got to see the new book by Brandon, Humans." And we got it, and I was in tears almost in every page. So
thank you.
I mean, congratulations. This is it. I held it up. It became an instant bestseller. And it's really 10 years. Let me talk a little bit, Brandon, because you say in the beginning of the book, it's been almost 10 years since you launched Humans of New York.
Right.
And the success of that led you to think, well, it wasn't so much about New York. You could take that same concept all over the world.
Right.
What story did you want to tell about our global world?
Yeah, it's interesting. For me, I have always tried to avoid defining the singular story that I'm trying to tell. Whether it is about humanity or what it is, about our world in general. I'm always trying to focus on how to best tell the story of the person in front of me. So that's always, what I focused on. It's just like the next story, and telling the next story in the best possible way. And so if there's anything that kind of really excites me as a storyteller when I'm doing these interviews, it's finding that thing that's different about this person, that's different about their experience, and the things that are very, specific to their lives. And I think one of the beautiful ironies in storytelling is that the more specific you can get, a lot of times the more universally it's felt. So yeah, it's never something that I've looked for. What is it that we all have in common? What is it about humanity that I can tell? But I think it comes through by proxy of trying to present each individual in the best possible way.
I mean, so many of these stories, in some pages, Brandon puts 2 or 3 lines. Some pages, there's a whole paragraph. And sometimes there's just a thought, but there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of resilience. There's a lot of joy. There's a lot of just observations about life. How long do you have to talk to a person to get this paragraph or these 2 lines that you decide to choose?
It varies. Sometimes you'll just run into somebody who, is a born storyteller one, and something amazing's just happened to them, and they tell you something wild or some amazing anecdote, and pretty much at that point, all I have to do is transcribe what they're telling me. It's a prepackaged amazing story that happens. Normally, what we're doing is we go through a life experience or something that somebody's been through that they might bring for the first time, or working through or processing for the first time. Those are the longer interviews. They're very slow, and I'm asking people to reflect on what certain life events meant to them, and how they processed it and what impact it had on their life. And so even though it appears in the blog or in the book as a short paragraph, these interviews can take about an hour and a half of somebody's time on the street, which is a very interesting dynamic, to stop a stranger randomly and then spend an hour and a half with them.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about that, because in the beginning of the book, you write about when you had this idea, you weren't a photographer and you weren't a journalist, you weren't really, somebody who wrote down stories, and you were actually kind of scared to go up to people and start
Right.
talking, but that over time, you've gained confidence, and that universally people you have found are just happy to be asked about their story, that someone's listening to them.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. When I started, I was just taking photos of people. And I remember being very nervous and very scared at first. Like, I didn't even know if it was legal to take a photo of a stranger. And I just thought, everybody that I stop is going to think that I'm crazy, or they're going to be offended, or think that I'm weird. And you asked at the very beginning, what is one thing that I've noticed about everybody that's common? And I think, the thing that has been most amazing to me over the years, or what I've learned, is that I went from not thinking a stranger would even allow me to take their photo to these days, 10 years later, 10,000 conversations later, approaching somebody with almost the expectation that in a short amount of time we will be talking about things that are very intimate, very private, things that they might not have shared with anybody else. And so, if there's one thing that the process has really opened my eyes to about humanity, is that willingness to share, that compulsion almost to share, to tell your story, even if it means being vulnerable, even if it means being very candid about things that you'd otherwise be private about. And that's something that, constantly amazes me on a day-to-day basis.
Why do you think that people tell you things that they've never told anybody else?
I, well, I mean, there's elements of the craft that I've developed over the years. Things about being very calm. I think the biggest obstacle, as an interviewer, you probably know, like whenever I was nervous when we came on, and I'm even more nervous because my internet connection's dying, and I'm thinking I'm ruining your live interview. So like I'm very nervous at first, So
Don't be
like,
nervous.
yeah, and so you take that and then you bring that to the street where there's this inherent interaction between two strangers that is inherently nerve-wracking. And so there's already this energy of uncertainty and, the person not being sure about who you are or what your motives are. And so like, if there's anything that I've learned, about the craft, is how to, in a very short amount of time, take this interaction with somebody on the street that starts out in a very kind of uncomfortable way and take it to a very quiet place where it's calm and it's reflective. And that's something that I had to get good at over the past 10 years, and a lot of it was just doing it so many times that I wasn't nervous. And therefore, if I'm not nervous, I can help the other person not be nervous. So that might be something that's unique to me. But I think probably the biggest factor is that I'm just a stranger. I am a anonymous person, that they have no history with. I have no
Yeah.
preconceived judgments of them, no knowledge of their past, no opinions about who they are, boxes that I put them in. This is a private person, this is a shy person. They can present their story in any way they want, free of any preconceptions and baggage. And I think that's a powerful thing. And I think that really encourages people to share.
I love that, to take people right away to a calm place, a quiet place where people can hear you. That's a safe place for people. I want to ask you, I said at the beginning, you came over to Abu Dhabi where we had the World Special Olympics.
Mm.
Everybody was all aflutter that you were there.
Oh,
And
thank you.
why did you want to come and photograph Special Olympics athletes and
I
talk to
mean,
them?
anytime I knew, well, first of all, sports stories in general are a fascinating type of story because they're always, inherently sport is adversity. You're training, you're overcoming barriers and obstacles. And I knew that these were great stories. And I knew that the stories in the Special Olympics would involve other barriers and other adversities that other athletes didn't even have to go through. Not only for the athletes themselves, but for the parents and the siblings and
Yeah.
everyone involved. The stigmatizing, what it's like to be someone with special needs in society. And that was kind of my goal, and that's the thing that I love to do the most, is to use an event like the Special Olympics, where a bunch of people are gathered for a very specific purpose, but then do honing just like I always do. Don't ask like, how do you feel about the match today? What's your strategy? Not event specific questions, but
Yeah.
what are your hopes and your fears and your struggles and your challenges? And so, I did that for a week at the Special Olympics. It was one of the best weeks of my life. I just fell in love with the Special Olympics, which I'm sure anybody that has any sort of proximity to it absolutely does. It's such a special event, such a special gathering of people. And yeah, I left absolutely smitten by it. It was a great week.
Well, I was so impressed that you came all that way. And also, as I said, there's so many stories in here, of resilience, but also so many of really heartbreak, and a lot of kind of great stories about grandparents in the beginning, about parents who had no education, about children who don't have parents but are told by other members of their family that their parents love them even though they're never there. I mean, I started dog earing each page, and then I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to be able to do that. But I thought that, I wanted to talk about this case that you had this week where you raised over $2.5 million for one of the women in the book for her
I'm
medical
I'm smiling because one of the reasons we got disconnected at first is she was calling me right as the interview started. Like,
Oh,
no.
really? So
Yes,
tell us
definitely.
about her. Tell us about this, and how do you feel about it?
So this was a very interesting evolution for me. Just as the doing series like the Special Olympics series was an evolution from completely stopping people randomly. Tangeray, which is her stage name, otherwise known as Stephanie, was a burlesque dancer in the 1970s. Notable because she was African American in a world that was extremely white at the time. And I met her randomly several months ago. I was walking down the streets, and she kind of had a cane, and she was dressed in a full-length mink coat, and she was kind of hobbling down the sidewalk, and I didn't even have my camera with me. I had just left the gym. I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and I said to her, like, you look great, because she did look great. She just was dressed immaculately. And she calls me over and she goes, I don't mean to be racist, but why do you white people always wear shorts in the winter? And that's how the conversation started. And I walked over to her, and next thing I know, this woman is just launching into stories from the 1970s, each one more fascinating than the others. She's got, interactions with James Brown, the Temptations. Her life was just unbelievable. And I told you that there's some people who are just prepackaged storytellers. This
Yeah.
is Stephanie. So I just start writing down everything she says. And it turns from 1 page to 2 page to 3 page to 4 pages to hundreds of pages. And I said, this is an opportunity to tell a story in a much deeper way than I normally do. And so instead of having a single post on her, I told her story over 32 different posts. And recently, Stephanie had come across some really bad health problems, and she was in a tough spot. So while we were telling her story, we were, at the same time holding a GoFundMe for her health care, which ended up raising $2.6 million. So it was.
Stop a minute. $2.6 million to send her in.
Right. Well, I always say this, and I told her this. The 11 million people follow Humans of New York on Instagram, and I always say that the one common denominator that everybody has in there, obviously it's 11 million people, it's a huge group, but the one thing that they all have in common is they all care about people. Because if you don't care about people, you're not going to stick around and read the stories of strangers. So it's almost self-selecting. It's a filter. And the people that click follow, the people that stick around and engage with the material, is the most compassionate, loving, non-judgmental group of people on the internet. Does that not mean that there's not judgmental people in there? Of course there is. But as a whole, it's just the greatest group of people ever. And so whenever there's anything like this, they step up in a big way.
Look, now here she is. I'm going to put this picture up of her. And what did she say when you told her that you had raised $2.6 million for her health care?
Well, I mean, I think it kind of dawned on her in stages. I mean, she was amazed when it raised 10,000. Like when I told her it raised $10,000, she was like, "Oh, I've got to sit down. I think I got to get off the phone. I think I'm having a heart attack." So, I mean, 6 hours later, it's 100,000. So she was kind of like the frog being boiled in a bucket of water. It's just like at some point it just stops having any meaning. The numbers. So. I think she's still processing it, but she's got so much going on. Her life is completely changed because, I mean, honestly, more valuable than the $2.6 million is her story. And she's got numerous options right now of other ways to tell that story and numerous people who are interested in helping her tell that story. So Stephanie is experiencing a second wind in her life right now and launching on her second career as a superstar, I believe.
That just gives me I have goosebumps. That by stopping and talking to a total stranger, sharing her story, made her feel visible, made the entire Humans of New York community involved in her story. They then came out and supported her in the time of need. She'll probably be the star of a movie. I know there's some discussion about whether her life will be made into a movie. But the community that surrounds you, that surrounds this book, these stories, is really the best of humanity. I mean, there's a lot of them on here that come here with you, but I gotta say, it gives me hope when we're kind of inundated with so much negative news and so many stories about what's wrong with us. This is everything that's good about us.
Well, thank you.
I mean, it's so true, and it's so. The only story I had here was a guy from the Netherlands says, "I think 60 is a pretty good age for life to terminate."
Oh, okay.
I was like, uh-oh. I was like, yikes.
Yeah, you do run into some people with some more negative views of life, and I think that those are important to include, because I think without the shadows and the people who are in tough spots and the people who have kind of negative views, I think the people who have more optimistic views don't carry as much weight.
There's other ones. I just want to say there's a whole bunch of other ones about the role of grandparents. There's one here, we're eating cookies before lunch because grandpa doesn't have any rules, which is, and then there's another one in here, which is a story of a woman who talks about her Nana, here it is. Her name is, it's just from Berlin, about her grandmother, and this is her story, and about how she never really felt accepted by her parents, but her grandmother always believed in her and loved her and kind of gave her hope to carry on. And it's just, it shows also so much the importance of love, of seeing people for who they are. And, a lot in here about addiction, people who are struggling with addiction and feeling, like they've let their mothers down.
Right.
There's a lot of them in here, just full pain. about that. I love this one of these two women. This is a great photograph. And they say, we don't have any hobbies, but we do try to get together a few times a month to judge people and complain about things.
That was,
So
yeah,
there's,
that one struck a chord. I think a lot of people identified with that. I didn't realize how many people identified with that until I posted it, and there were about 10,000 comments of people saying, that's exactly like me. That's exactly like me.
and then this one just, I can't stop staring at it. Said, I would give my soul if I could fix her brain.
Yeah.
And it's a picture of a father with his daughter in Iraq. But the bottom line is, I could sit here for, and here she is again, Tegra. There she is again, another incredible picture of Stephanie there. But every single one of these pictures, which is the point, obviously, has a story. And they're worth sitting with, thinking about, rereading. And I just want to say that for so many people who say, like, I don't know what to do with my life, this is a young man who just got up and started talking to people and caring about people. And 10 years later, are you not stunned at what you created and accomplished?
Yeah, my goal was always, when I first started, was to create a life where I can make enough money to pay my rent and photograph all day long. That was my baseline level of success. And I remember, after several months of doing this, like 16 hours a day, I had like, 2,000 followers or something. And I was like, if I do this every single day for the next 3 years, at the end of 3 years, I will have 10,000 people following me. And like, for me, that was the biggest number in the world. Like, I couldn't even imagine. That was like such an outsized version of success for me. So, the fact that it grew into what it did, was so much beyond what I wanted, but that's not really what I wanted. I wanted the freedom to do something every single day, that, because I was coming from the finance industry, which was interesting in its own ways, but I was sitting in front of a computer. I couldn't really relate to other people about the work that I did. And the one thing I wanted more than anything was a way to fill my time that was nourishing. Not a way to get something, not a way to get followers or get money, but a way to spend every single day in a way that nourished me. And Humans of New York gave me that, and it still gives me that. And even with all the success in the books, the thing that I'm most jealous of, and the thing that I value the most and I protect the most, is the ability to create all day long and to have these meaningful interactions all day long. And it was the one thing, and I had that from day one, and it's still the thing that I love the most about the work.
Wow. Beautifully said. Brandon Stanton, the book is called Humans, just out, already a big success. Thank you so much. Hope people
Thank you
pick up
so
your
much, and I'm
daughter.
sorry about my technology snafus.
Beautiful.
I'm glad we got to talk. Thank you so much,
Me
Maria.
too. Thank you, Brandon. Thank
Bye.
you. Wow. What an inspiring young man. And there's so many lessons in his story, but what he said, I just wanted to do what I loved, and I wanted to try to figure out how to make a living doing what I loved. And there he did it. He did it. And he went out and he's changed the lives of millions of people, and everybody who follows him, all of you people who came over to join us from Humans of New York, congratulations to all of you for all that you have done, all the people you've supported, all the comments you've left on those pages that make people feel uplifted and seen and valued and understood. So thank you for joining our page today. The book is called Humans. We're going to put this up in the Sunday paper, which is our weekly newsletter that comes out every Sunday. And we publish voices of people like Brandon who are trying to improve humanity and inspire our hearts and our minds. So if you don't subscribe to it, I hope you will. And I hope we do more conversations with people as inspiring as Brandon. And look at that, Stephanie. And look at all of you who've raised that money for her. Wow, wow, wow. Happy Thursday. Don't forget to watch the debate tonight. I don't know if it'll be that inspiring, but hopefully it will be. Thanks so much.